Good evening, Shrija.
Good evening, ma'am.
So, how are you? All good?
Yes, ma'am. So far, good. It's going.
Okay, great, great. So, I think let us start. Though you are the only one here, but then I think slowly students are going to come in. Okay. Uh,
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
yeah. So, okay. Shrisha is already here. Good evening, Shrisha. So,
Good evening.
yeah. So, I think we should start, right? Okay. So, in the last session, we were doing MGSE 2, and we had started the second book, which basically deals with the government and the voluntary sector as to how the development of the country is affected, or how these organizations, of course, the government as well as the other non-government organization have an impact on on the development process, and how they have always advocated to bring in gender as or the gender issues while they are formulating plans, and how well they have incorporated gender, right? So that is what we will be studying. So we have already completed 2 units. Now the next unit, which is the eighth unit, is basically on the non-government organization and civil societies. Okay, we all know that NGOs play a very important role when it comes to the government, when it comes to mm, um, having basically, apart from social work. I mean, we always say that they are doing social work, but along with that, it is also important to understand that they help the government as well, okay, in implementing certain certain policies and programs, especially related to the gender, related to children, okay, education. We all know that the social infrastructure of education, of of food distribution, of medical facilities that are made available, and apart from that, housing. I mean, a lot of things are very essential for the poor, people whose income levels are very low. And it is important that it is true that the government is doing a lot of work, but at the same time, it becomes very important to have these kind of societies, which are known as, popularly known as, civil societies. They are also known as the NGOs, because they help in not just providing a giving help to the government to implement policies, but they also bring uh, certain issues in front of the people and the government, okay, to understand as to how these issues are important and how it can be handled. So nowadays there are a lot of big NGOs who are not just working on their own, who are working alongside with the government, okay, and helping them, right, and also getting help from the government as well. So that is what we are supposed to understand, and especially the role of NGOs become very important post liberalization, because uh, with the liberalization policy, or when we implement the policies of globalization, we open the market. Okay, when we open our local markets, when we open our economy, okay, or we liberalize our economy, then the role of NGOs become more important, because slowly the government's intervention in several areas reduces, because when we sign treaties, international treaties, or for trade, for free trade and other things, we are actually opening our economy to the international market, and that results sometimes in reduction in the government's interventions. Okay, so obviously when the government's intervention reduces, there is a section of the society who who feels the pressure. Okay, so how the NGOs, come into this side, and then they start, advocating and helping those the section of the society, plus the government also. Okay, so the rise of the NGO is, it has been a central process. Okay, and not just in India, but all over the world, and especially places uh, where the NGOs are mostly required. Okay, so after the liberal policy of the economy, or after the liberal political economy, their role has become very, very important. Okay, but unfortunately, what has happened is that not much attention, have been given and towards the NGOs, and not many studies are there to show as to how NGOs, or what kind of role NGOs are playing. It also sometimes doesn't okay. Good evening, Sharma ji.
नमस्कार मैडम, गुड इवनिंग, कैसी हैं
नमस्कार।
मैडम?
अच्छा हुआ आप भी आज आ गए क्लास में, आप दिख गए बहुत दिनों के बाद।
जी जी जी, यस मैडम। थैंक यू सो मच मैडम, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर काइंडली गाइडिंग आवर स्टूडेंट्स। थैंक यू मैडम।
नॉट एट ऑल सर, माय प्लेजर, आई एम वेरी हैप्पी कि
थैंक यू
थोड़ा बहुत मैं इन लोगों को अगर थोड़ा सा भी हेल्प कर सकूं, तो आई एम वेरी हैप्पी अबाउट इट।
जी।
थैंक यू।
मैडम, मैं आपसे भी और स्टूडेंट्स से भी एक बार रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि अगर एक बार कैमरा ऑन कर लें तो मैं एक छोटा
हाँ,
सा स्क्रीनशॉट ले लूंगा मैडम।
ओके। बाकी स्टूडेंट्स का भी आप चाहते हैं?
जी यस मैडम, स्टूडेंट्स भी अगर
ओके, श्रीशा, श्रीजा एंड अनीशा, फॉर अ मिनट इफ यू कैन प्लीज पुट योर कैमराज ऑन। आई थिंक सर कुछ
यस। गुड इवनिंग लर्नर्स, गुड इवनिंग डियर स्टूडेंट्स।
गुड इवनिंग।
Next.
आपकी क्लासेस क्लासेस कैसी चल रही हैं? आर यू एंजॉयिंग आवर सेशंस?
या
Yes, sir.
ओके। अभी आज क्या पढ़ रहे हैं?
MG.
रोल ऑफ एनजीओज।
गुड, वंडरफुल। आपने क्लास अटेंड करने से पहले स्टडी मटेरियल को स्टडी किया है क्या? स्टडी मटेरियल पढ़ा है पहले आपने?
नहीं, क्लास अटेंड करने के
यस यस, प्लीज प्लीज शेयर योर फीडबैक।
After the
आफ्टर
class,
क्लास
during the class, points are noted down, and after the class, we're trying to sit and study.
ओके ओके, माय हम्बल सजेशन is that if you want to get the full advantage of these sessions, you should have an advanced reading of the study material. उससे क्या होगा कि जब आप स्टडी मटेरियल की एक रीडिंग ऑलरेडी ले चुके होंगे तो आपको कुछ पॉइंट्स पे हो सकता है डाउट्स हो जाएं, कोई कंफ्यूजन हो जाए। तो उसके बाद फिर जब मैडम क्लास लेती हैं, आपका सेशन लेती हैं, तो उस समय पर फिर आप अपने डाउट्स को रेज कर सकते हैं, क्लियर कर सकते हैं, और मैडम से उनके बारे में ज्यादा डिटेल्ड जानकारी ले सकते हैं। तो इसीलिए ये काउंसलिंग सेशंस हमारी यूनिवर्सिटी स्टूडेंट्स के लिए ऑर्गेनाइज करती है, और स्टूडेंट्स से रिक्वेस्ट करती हैं कि काउंसलिंग सेशंस में पढ़कर आएं। You should have an advanced reading of the study material of that course, which is going to be covered today by the academic counselor. So this is my humble request to all of you. Yes, yes.
ओके सर, थैंक यू।
Yes, thank you so much, and my best wishes. आप अच्छे से सेशंस को अटेंड करिए, और कुछ भी आपको हेल्प चाहिए हो तो मैडम भी हैं, और हम लोग रीजनल सेंटर पर हम लोग भी हैं। तो जो भी आपको हेल्प चाहिए तो आप हम लोगों को ईमेल डालकर आप बता सकते हैं। वी विल हेल्प यू आउट। ठीक है,
Okay,
थैंक यू
thank
सो
you.
मच, थैंक यू, गॉड ब्लेस यू ऑल, थैंक यू सो मच, थैंक यू
थैंक
मैडम,
यू,
Thank you, sir.
थैंक यू, थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू सो
थैंक
मच।
यू मैडम, थैंक यू सो मच मैम।
थैंक यू। Okay. Right. So let us continue with what we were doing. Right. So as I said you, as I told you that the NGO sectors, not much studies have been done Somewhere or the other, initially when NGOs came up, the government, or in general, people did not really think about them as a very important agent in the development, okay, or in the development process, or in helping in the alleviation of certain issues, social and economic issues. So obviously much studies have not been done, right? But then many NGOs, also sometimes it also happens that there are some NGOs who are very strong. They also do not want, uh, or do not encourage to be studied, somewhere or the other. And many of the some of the institutions and some of the agencies who work in partnership with NGOs also feel that they should not unnecessarily study, because the NGOs have become a part of the the academic sector. So many of the NGOs, they help the academic sector in several ways, not just in form of money is not necessarily important, but many help, like helping them to teach the poor section, or giving the students an opportunity to be a part of the NGO, for their internship. So because of all this relationship that the NGOs have with the academic, it never occurred to people to unnecessarily disturb the NGOs by studying them. But slowly, a lot of NGOs have started working in, and now a lot of study is also being conducted. Uh, According to the latest information in India, we have about 93,623 registered NGOs. Okay, and that's a huge number, right? Initially, it was about 30,000 somewhere in 97, and today I just checked the latest data, and I found that it is more than 93,000. Probably almost touching 94. And there are some NGOs which are registered under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Okay, because many of the NGOs are working with international funding agencies, who give them fund. And such numbers have also increased. In 1997 it was around 14,000, and today it stands around 16,989 to be precise. Okay, so you can say almost touching 17,000. So these are the number of NGOs that we have in our country, and I'm talking about NGOs in India. Okay, so the voluntary sector includes the non-government, non-profit organizations. Okay, so all the organizations which are working on no profit basis, okay, they are the one who are known as NGOs, and they are engaged in variety of activities. Okay, from implementing at the grassroots level sustainable development programs. Okay, they are promoting human rights and social justice. They are protesting, against environmental degradation, and many other, similar tasks are there. There are several things that they do, and they call also themselves not just NGOs. In fact, many of the NGOs say that we are not NGOs, we are actually the social action group. Okay, we are the political action group. All right, so we are the social movement group. So that is the name that should be given to us, and not known as, and we should not be known only as an NGO or something like that. Okay, so now but at the same time, there are a lot of people who have certain reservations about NGOs. Many of them feel that NGOs are only working in the name of NGO. Their main aim is either to gain popularity. The person who has opened an NGO, he or she is basically trying to get public attention. There are people who believe that NGOs are somewhere or the other, in the name of social service, are uh, taking a lot of money, in form of charity. And who knows how much they are spending, right? Because some of the NGOs, or rather a lot of NGOs, do not always, they are not very open about, and they're not very transparent. Okay, they talk about transparency. When it comes to the government, they ask government to be transparent. Okay, they keep complaining that the government policies and the way the government is functioning, should be transparent, should be democratic, should be completely open, so that, because obviously government is using the funds that we people give in tax, and therefore the government should be open about it. But when it comes to their own transparency, their own openness, many NGOs are not at all very open. And that is the reason why people find that many NGOs are, you know having double standards, because they are saying that the government should do, but they themselves are not following the same thing. And sometimes many government also find it very hard, to to solve the problem of succession. Now what happens that, if most of the NGOs, there is this one a person who heads the NGO, because he's the one, or she's the one, the NGO is his or her brainchild. Okay, so the person has thought about something, and they decide that single person, uh, either a male or a female, whoever is the head, had decided that they will start an NGO, and this NGO will work in this particular field. Now she or he is the one who takes all the decision, how the NGO will function, how more and more people would get advantage, who are the one who are going to work as a part of the NGO. So when all the decisions are taken by that one person, at times the person is not also ready to involve or create a second line. So now the problem is that if something happens to that person after the person is no more, okay, what happens to the NGO? Who becomes the successor of the NGO? Okay, not necessary that the person's family is interested, right? So in that case, it becomes very difficult for the NGO to decide the who is the successor. Okay, so there are certain technical issues that the NGO is facing, but slowly these are being handled. Okay, and a lot of work is being done in this regard also from the NGO side. And it has also been recognized in the past few decades that the NGOs have the capacity, to help the government uh, in developing the human capabilities. Okay, in because if the government decides that people are more and more people, women, let us say, uh, to become a part of the political system. Now we all understand that just giving them a reservation is not going to be enough. They should be capable uh, of being a part of the system. So who is going to train them? In every nook and corner, the government cannot send their people. Moreover, we all know India is a vast country. We have and we also have diversity, a lot of diversity, be it religious diversity, be it language, the linguistic diversity. So in order to address the local people, NGOs sometimes comes as a very big help, because many of the NGOs, especially the local NGOs, they understand what the issues are, how it can be handled, and the government, with the help of them, can create the software that is required. Okay, so by helping, so the government helps a lot. And yes, the issue of accountability is also raised by the dependence of NGOs on external sources. There are a lot of things which are asked about, uh, if the NGO is getting funds from outside. Okay, it becomes a very big responsibility of the government as to how or from where the funds are coming. Okay, or if the funds that are being given, are legally correct or not. So a lot of things need to be, addressed there also. And there are sometimes conflicts within the NGO as well. Okay, the donor, the state, conflict between the NGO and the donor, or conflict between the state and the NGO. The NGO wants something else and the state wants something else, so there is a conflict of um, interest and issues. Then the grassroots problems that are there in one particular area. It is important that a lot needs to be, understood as to how the NGOs are going to work there, and how the government is going to work there. So these are the issues that are there, but undoubtedly NGOs play a very, very important role. Okay, in the next block also there is a few things about NGOs that you will come to know. The next unit that you have in this block is changing facets of the voluntary sector. uh, we all know that development is basically the process of improving the quality of all human lives. Okay, it is, that is the reason why we talk about development, right? So with the help of development, or rather the development should target at raising people's living standards. Okay, and that can be done. Okay, it's okay, Nalini. That's okay, not a problem, right? We all know that how we are doing the ninth unit, Nalini, of the second block of MGS-02, and that is basically the changing facets of voluntary sector. Okay, right? So we are just trying to figure out as to how voluntary sectors can help in the development process. Okay, so before that, we are just saying that what I'm trying to say is that uh, the development process basically uh, uh, affects some important aspects. The first is their main aim is to raise people's living by increasing income and consumption. Okay, the level of food, the medical services, the education services. Okay, so more people are able to use these. We say that the development is taking place. Similarly, development is also responsible in creating conditions which are conducive to growth of people's self esteem. Okay, there should be such political, social, and economic system and institutions that help to promote human dignity and respect. Okay, so people's self-esteem should be developed, right? It also helps in increasing people's freedom to choose. Okay, so the development process is by enlarging, the range of choice of lot of variables, right, including maybe, the goods and the services. Okay, so we should be in a position to choose what we want. All right, so the more we are able to choose, the better we say that the development process is taking place, right? Now, in all this, obviously, what is required is the development planning. Okay, and in India, social welfare sector have remained by and large neglected, due to the spell of foreign rule. We all know that when we were under the colonial rule, at that time, the social welfare sector was never uh, a point of interest as far as the British rules are rule was concerned. But of course, post independence, the Indian constitution was drafted, and we all know, those of you who are basically aware of the constitution, we know that the preamble of the constitution aims at assuring social, economic, and political justice to each and every person, right? Irrespective of the class, the community, the religion, the caste, the sex of the person. Everyone is treated equally as far as Indian constitution is concerned. Okay, so we are committed. The nation is committed to the welfare state. Okay, where the the interest of both individual and the state are protected. Okay, and therefore we have opted for a mixed pattern of economy. We know that, I don't know how many of you are coming from an economics background, but otherwise also, generally, all of all of us are aware that there are, like, economies have are we have different types of economies, isn't it? We have the capitalist economy, the Western worlds are following that. We have the communist economy, we have the socialist economy, and we also have a mixed economy. The mixed economy basically has the advantages of both the socialistic economy as well as the capitalistic economy, and we put them together, right? So, and that is the reason in India you will find that if we look at the industrial sector, we have the government sector, we have the public sector, we also have the private sector. Okay, of course, initially there were a lot of restrictions. There were a lot of restrictions on areas where the private sector will not be allowed to enter, right? But after 1991, we are slowly, we have slowly opened the shackles, and we are now permitting private sector entry into many areas. Like, for example, uh, telecom. If you, I mean, many of you are probably not aware of, but when I was young, we only had one telephone service, and that is the government, telephone service. Okay, so BSNL. Okay, that is the only thing we have, the Bharat Sanchar. And later on, of course, the Airtel came, and then finally there were so many, isn't it? Now today we have so many options, right? When you are able to choose, when you are able to select whichever you want to, right? Because the government allowed, okay, the other sectors to come in. Aviation sector is another example. Initially it was only the government airlines, right? Indian Airlines and Air India, these were the two, right? International Air India, local domestic flights will be of Indian Airlines. But then again, because of the opening, so many you know uh, different service has been, providers have come. So what I'm trying to say is that this is what we have as a mixed economy, because the aim was, our model of development was, that we should be permitting, every type of all the benefits of both the type of economy should be there in India. Now, basically, the kind of model of development that we have followed was that during the 50s and the 60s, we have emphasized mostly on the large scale industries, okay, and agriculture. Our first plan, 5-year plan, is known as agricultural plan. All right. The reason being that at that time, because of the partition, a lot of population have shifted from both the West Pakistan, which is the current Pakistan, and East Pakistan, which is known as the, nowadays it is known as Bangladesh. Okay, so there have been a lot of influx of people, right? The burden of population was more, and therefore it was important. The first thing was to feed them. So therefore, the first plan, uh, heavily invested on agriculture so that we can have the higher production of food grain and become more, kind of self-sufficient. Okay. Then in the second 5-year plan is known as the industrial plan, and that is the plan in which we start. The government has invested in some major public sector large scale industry. Bharat Heavy Electricals, then Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, then all the industries, iron and steel industries, right? Durgapur Iron and Steel, Bokaro Steel Plant, Bhilai Steel Plant. Okay, so these were the organizations in, or rather industries that was set up during the second 5-year plan, because we wanted to create more employment firstly, and we wanted to become self dependent, or rather independent, when it comes to heavy electrical and heavy machinery is concerned. Okay, so the 50s and 60s were primarily for this. In the 70s, the basic need was to focus on individuals and families, okay, as to how to give a better life to the family. Of course, employment generation and banking sector was extended. It was in the 70s when the banks were nationalized. Okay, so that was somewhere or the other we started to think about the infrastructure side also. In the 80s, obviously, we shifted towards the sustainable development, gender equity. Okay, so this started in India in 80s. Okay, because we had to groom the economy accordingly, isn't it? And more recently, we have shifted towards economic liberalization. Okay, when we thought that, okay, we have the basic industries, we have become independent as far as food supply is concerned. We are ready to even supply to other countries. We have got the basic infrastructure, road transport, railway, aviation, and all, and hospitals, and human things are there. Then we also started including gender equality, or rather equity, and then finally we decided that liberalization should be done. Okay, we India is, we all know, is an emerging economy, right? Today we are in the top 5. Okay, but that's very recent, and we are aiming to become the third, at least, largest economy. So definitely, the 75 years of planning have made certain good changes in the country. But at the same time, it is realized that uh, a large percentage of population in India is in the below poverty line section. Okay, so this is where the planning needs to now concentrate, right? Becoming the fifth top, top 5 economies, top 3 economies is not going to help, uh, because they are all in numbers. हम इतने ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी बन जाएंगे या इतने इसमें, that is fine, but we have to also understand whether the result of that development is percolating to the person who is at the end of the line. Okay, so that is also very important, because ultimately qualitative change in people's life and in each person's life also should be the goal of development. So the goal of development should just not be restricted to the quantitative measures, but it should be for the qualitative measures also. Now this is where the NGOs and the civil societies can play a role. Okay, because as I told you that uh, the NGOs anywhere, be it not just in India, but everywhere, NGOs uh, are extremely varied in terms of size, in terms of activities that they perform, in terms of their philosophy, right? So there are a lot of different ideas, or a lot of different uh, beliefs, okay, that the NGO follow. Okay, so there are NGOs who have, you know uh, who have a Gandhian constructive work, okay, like helping people to get smaller. Just a second. Sorry. So the the that some kind of work should be given to the poor people, and so that they can earn their living, जैसे बोला जाता था कि गांधी जी का कहना था कि खुद का कपड़े खुद बनाओ, सो खादी का काम करो, या एनीथिंग, मेक योर ओन सॉल्ट, what are these are of course against the British rule, but this is also the belief that we, the poor people, should start working for themselves, okay, even if it is a small work, they can do it and they can earn uh, their own money, they can become independent, so there are many NGOs who believe that these kind of things should be done. There are many NGOs who work, who create awareness, for the government. There are NGOs who create awareness for the people, okay. There are many civil societies working for environment, right? I remember that somebody long time back, I mean about a decade back or more than that, somebody had told me that I was going to Mumbai for a conference, and I was told that the beaches uh, uh, of Mumbai, they are so dirty that you can't even go and stand there, and because they knew that I'm very fond of sea, and so they told me don't go, it's in a very bad condition, and then I said okay, fine, let me see. So when I went for the conference in the evening, I thought that I'll just make a visit to the Chowpatty, which was very close to where I was staying. So I went there with a full confidence that I will not be able to even enter the beach because it's going to be very dirty. So, but then when I reached there, I found that it was absolutely clean. Forget about, I mean, like when people are saying, when I was told that you can't even walk, you can actually go and sit down on the beach and you can enjoy the sunset or whatever. And then I was like very surprised. Then I spoke to one of my friend, a local friend, and she said that there is a lot of civil societies who have come up and they have taken the responsibility of cleaning, the beaches. Okay, and it is actually working, right? So all these NGOs or the civil societies, they create a lot of good impact, okay, on the society, on the people, on the government, okay. And government machinery alone cannot handle everything. It is not uh, possible, okay. For the sake of sustainable development, every citizen of the country, you know uh, should be able to get all the basic amenities, and for the government, in it is important to have another machinery to help implement their plans, okay. And that is where the voluntary sector uh, can do a massive work, okay, especially as I told you, in the remote areas, right? Because we have to understand, in the remote area, in the backward areas, where the government probably have not even reached, okay. But people from that area, they know what the problem is, and they can bring it in front of them. So voluntary sector plays a very very important uh, you know role. Now, basically, the voluntary sector, which is also known as the NGO, is, it refers to organizations which, first of all, are not based on government, right? Secondly, not created to earn profit, right? And therefore, their role, uh, or they have actually come out because they need to work in and for the community. Okay, so in order to work within the community and work for the people, okay, of that particular community, where the government or any kind of other, interventions have not been able to reach. All right, so NGOs have actually filled the widely existing gap, isn't it, between the the growing and the diversified need of a vast majority of population, okay, at the grassroots level, and the facilities and services that they need to access. So they are the one who form a bridge between the services available and how the services should reach the people who need them. Okay, and NGOs may also be considered, as a product of perceived and demonstrated inequalities in the state. Okay, we all know that even in India, there are some states which are very developed, there are some states which are not so developed. Okay, so we do have that gap, isn't it? So it is not just the economic gap, it is the gap that exists uh, from one state to another. It is the gap that exists between the rural area and the urban area. Okay, there is a gap which is even within the urban area. There are gaps. We have the metros, we have the A grade city, B grade city, C grade city, isn't it? We have small towns, we have the villages, in which there are villages which are closer to the city and probably get the advantage of the development process easier, more easily. But there are cities, villages which are in the deep remote area, where accessing people are also not possible. Maybe there are no access road, there are, the people are not able to go even there. So all these gaps, which are there, the economic gap, the infrastructural gap, the social gap, okay, all these can be bridged with the help of the NGOs. Okay, so they uh, and they are, there are certain areas in which they work on. Right, first is that they try to reach out to the community, okay, through an insider approach. Okay, so if there is an area which is not reachable, the problems can be identified by the people in that locality. Okay, so the NGOs try to reach out with the help of those local people. Okay, there are times when some people are uh, not very comfortable with, outsiders, right? So they want to talk to the insider, so NGO reach out through that. Okay, uh, they try and improve the quality of life of that community. Okay, of that community which is underprivileged or which is, marginalized. Then they try and redefine the social outreach program. Okay, and have broader development objectives. Okay, with small step, they try to have broader objectives. And that is, they try to open up, the various fields where they can work. Okay, and uh, right, and how they do it, they have the ability, the NGOs have the ability to form close, uh, linkage in the with the local community, right? So that is the ability, that is the quality of a good NGO. Okay, or a good voluntary, organization. They engender the community's ownership. Okay, so they bring the gender together, not just focusing on one gender, but a proper gendering of the community. They participate in the development efforts. Okay, quickly responding to the new challenges, whatever new circumstances have come. Right, the NGOs are equipped to, quickly respond to the changes. They sometimes also experiment with some innovative approaches. राइट, अगर ऐसे काम नहीं हो रहा है तो इसको किसी और तरीके से, वी कैन डू इट. right? So that also they try to, they identify the emerging issues. If there are certain new issues coming up in that particular area, or that particular community, they try and identify them and see how it can be used for the better, right? So they identify and express the beneficiary view, okay, to find out who are the beneficiaries, identify them, and how they can be benefited, okay, by different kind of approaches. They build bridges between people and the communities on one side, and also the government and development institutions and the donors on the other side. So they are trying to bridge the gap that exists between donor, the government, the organizations, the development agencies, and of course the community. Okay, so they try to bridge the gap, and frequently they represent issues and views important to that particular area by advocacy. Okay, so advocacy, as you all know, it is like to find a support group for an issue. Okay, so when they identify a particular problem, then they make an advocacy program, they collect as much support as possible, and then make sure that it reaches to the concerned authority. It can be government, it can be an institution, or it can be any other organization. So that is how they work. Okay, uh, there are, as I told you, the functional roles of NGOs can differ, right? There are different types of NGOs. Okay, NGOs who work on, they also work on different levels, right? There are NGOs who work on local level, there are NGOs who work on national level, and still there are NGOs who are working at international level. Okay, then the the way they operate and the approach that they follow can also be different. Okay, so the operational NGO, okay, can be the NGOs which are primarily help uh, in the contribution and delivery of welfare services. Okay, so there are some NGOs who are primarily working to for the development or welfare services. Okay, it can be like emergency relief, isn't it? It can be the environmental protection and management. Okay, so these are the different range of issues and interests that are there, where they can work as they are usually known as the operational NGOs, and they display a range of program, organizational structure, all right, operational orientation through which they work in these areas. Advocacy NGOs are primarily those NGOs where, as I told you, they 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 try to get a public support, okay, for, or sometimes even recommend a particular cause or a particular policy. Okay, and they try and get that support and make sure that with that advocacy they are able to uh, raise their voice, towards certain issues. Like for example, if if they find that in one of the villages there are a lot of cases of HIV. Okay, and so how they can create a support for that group. Okay, and bring the necessary medical uh, you know necessary medical information, necessary medical relief, for those people. So that is one way of having an advocacy NGO. So there are various NGOs, as I told you, they work at different levels. Okay, national and international level NGOs are also very very important NGOs, because uh, their organizational and technical capacities are very different. They are larger as compared to the small local NGOs, and they can always influence the government. Okay, and even international organizations. All right, so that way their role becomes extremely important. Okay, so that is how it is. Now, what are the challenges and limitations of NGO, right? One of the major challenges element of dependence. Okay, NGOs don't have their own money, right? They depend on on completely dependent on charity, okay, and contributions from other NGOs or any other place, from corporate, okay, from the government, of course. So sometimes if the fund uh, is not enough, or the funds do not come on time, if they are not released on time, then for an NGO it becomes a little difficult, okay. Then lack of technical capacity. Sometimes NGOs face lack of technical capacity, okay. It is not necessary that if I decide to open an NGO for any particular work, okay, I may not have that the technical capability. So for that, I must have a technical advisor. But sometimes I may or may not get it, and if I don't get it, then my NGO will not work properly. Sometimes NGO find that the problem of lost voice. Okay, as I told you, large NGOs, accomplished NGOs have a better control. Okay, they can influence the government. Smaller NGOs, local NGOs sometimes do not get any attention. Okay, and that becomes a problem. Then status and reputation, as the very similar, that NGOs who are, there are many a times NGOs might are considered as money fetching machines, okay, that they are only trying to gather money, right. Such NGOs sometimes, if that is the status and that is the reputation, then or if that reputation is created for NGOs, it becomes very difficult for them to work, and people do not look at them very in a very good way, okay. Then isolation and neglect. Sometimes NGOs, you know who have some, due to some reason, have weak linkages, okay. uh, it is possible that they are not very the people do not, or even the government does not look at them and help them. So that again becomes a problem, okay. But yes, there are some changes, especially in the contemporary development uh, scenario. In the contemporary scenario, it has been seen that even for the countries, economies, lot of development approach today is thinking about shifting from charity to development perspective, right. So in the era of globalization, the entire world is becoming closer, isn't it? We are talking about global village, isn't it? It's a very popular word. We talk about being global citizen, isn't it? So it is, uh, and because United Nation has declared, the right to development for all people, for human right for all people, right. It is, economic empowerment has to be ensured, okay. And it is, the main aim and objective of development is not just to make economically empowered, but also we talk about the welfare state. As I told you, it is not just about quantitative measurements of income and per capita income and GDP. It is also about the quality of life, the standard of living, the education, the medical facilities, all the amenities that are important for people, how well they are getting it and how well they are using it. So we are actually talking about welfare state. So when measure of development is changing from quantitative to qualitative, talking about human society, as to how human beings should be developed, how human rights should be given, gender rights should be given, okay. So gender component has emerged as a focal point for the development in the recent years. Okay, because when we talk about human rights, automatically we are actually talking about the gender rights and the gender issues. Okay, so a lot of work is being done. The United Nations Commission on Human Security, and a lot of people are talking about it. Amrita Sen is a big advocate and an economist who always talks about welfare. Okay, so it has been also observed that sometimes the state, okay, uh, is not able to very efficiently um, create a situation of development, taking everything in under the uh, development program. Okay, so gender issues and all these, in many countries we find that in spite of the high rate of development, gender issues are not being taken care of. So somewhere or the other the government is failing there. Okay, but the changing dynamics of development insisted that the good governance can be strengthened with the help of proper mechanism. Okay, so if the government wants to work properly, right, it has to have certain mechanisms. Okay, and mechanisms, when we talk about mechanisms, we are actually talking about the institutions, isn't it? So with the help of the institutions, the government will be able to implement the plan, right, or implement the development programs. Now, in order to do that, it is important that the government also should start thinking about the voluntary sector, right, because voluntary sector is the one which can work as a mechanism for the government in both, in respect of both. One is to implement the plans, as well as to bring forward the issues that are neglected, okay, or issues which the government has not taken into consideration. Okay, and that is the reason where the role of NGO becomes very important in the contemporary scenario. Okay, so the voluntary social work organization who render help to the government and the society for improvement of the quality of life. So it is the NGO who can do that, and not just the life of people. We know that there are a lot of animal activists also nowadays, isn't it? We keep hearing, the Society for Cruelty Against Women, against animal. Okay, so for both animal, for the people and the animal, and of course the environment, many NGOs are helping the can help the government. Okay, so emergence of NGO actually represent a very new social movement. Okay, a movement through which uh, it can include a cross section of people, okay, and affect those people as well in a positive manner. Okay, so NGOs, they have to work with complex market forces, right? They have to work in a very professionalized manner. So it has also become important for the NGOs that they also become equipped. Okay, so just very old concept of NGO may not be very successful in today's contemporary scenario. Okay, and what are the scope of NGOs? One is of course social well-being, right? The community well-being programs that are initiated and it is implemented. It can be in areas of health, education, environment. So that is where NGO can work very well. Advocacy, as I told you, NGO can spread awareness among people, okay, on various issues which are directly or indirectly they can affect their life. Okay, so it can be economic issues, it can be health issues, it can be environmental issues. So creating a program of creating advocacy. Then action research, many NGOs, they take their own research, okay, on social issues. We know that we have many government statistical institutes, isn't it? The National Sample Survey and others. So they are the one who conduct surveys every year, okay, and get information about various areas. But we also have the census, which is a big survey in our country. But at the same time, NGOs also conduct surveys, okay. So if they identify a problem in some area, so they can conceptualize a social program of, for that community by undertaking a survey of their own, right? And sometimes the data that these NGOs collect can also in turn help the government, to improve their program. Then of course, community mobilization. So they can mobilize people, right? So if NGOs are working in a community, because the community or that particular, the local people, they know them, they can they can try and mobilize them against some, you know just a second. Against some decision that the government has taken, right? Like we know that the Narmada Bachao Andolan was taken up by Medha Patkar, okay, where some kind of a dam was being built, and there were a lot of problems, and it was realized that it is going to be environmentally very challenging, and there was a movement done by them, right? So these are areas where the voluntary sector can have an impact. Then the NGO, but at the same time, as I told you, because of the changing uh, scenario of development, because of the globalization and all, the role on the scope of NGOs have widened. And at the same time, it is also important that the NGOs themselves, you know um need to undertake a change, okay. And what are those areas where the NGOs need to change? NGO needs to change, need to, professionalize their function, right? They have to become professional, right? They have to find out, need the expertise to work, okay. And they can have workshops, they can have seminars, all these things, and to upgrade themselves also is very, very important, right? They also need to have an office automation, right? Today everything we all know is, done with automation, and it is important for them to do that, because then it will be easier for them to access information, access data that they require, so that is very important. The interaction between NGO and government organizations, okay, there should be a smooth interaction, there should be an open interaction between the NGO and the government, so the relationship between the two should improve, right? If they have to see the changes, then it is also important to have, or induct scientists and technocrats if at all required. NGOs must try and figure out if they can uh, have these kind of things, right? Then the civil societies and NGOs should come together, okay. All the civil society, sometimes, civil societies come up for the local work, okay. So if necessary, they should be in a position to work alongside with the NGOs, right? The state machinery and NGO should also be able to kind of function, right? Then uh, there are different kinds of NGOs. We have Karodpati NGO, we have the Lakpati NGO. I mean, working at these levels. So for them also there are different challenges. Stakes are high for Karodpati NGOs, right? Stakes are not so high for the Lakpati NGOs, isn't it? So the bigger the NGO, the higher the amount that they are working with, they have their own ways, they have different challenges, okay. Then political parties and safety for the community workers, sometimes political parties, uh, you know if a particular political party do not like an NGO's work, there might be a risk for those who are working in that NGO, right? So a security is also sometimes required for many NGOs. Suppose uh, a human trafficking is taking place, and there is this one Bahubali who is politically connected, and he may we don't we hear cases that they are also involved in human trafficking, right? So in that case, people who are working in an NGO, if NGO is working to try and check the human trafficking, people who are working with them might have a uh, life risk, okay, because they are very their connections are very strong. So how they should try and figure out how to be safe also is very very important. Okay, so these are the challenges that the NGOs are facing, right? And but still they are working, and a lot of good work is taking place, right? So with that, we come to the end of the second block of MGS-02. Now today, again, let us start the next block, that is the third block. Okay, and here we are talking about formulating gender sensitive development goals. Okay, here there are a few units. We will see how many we can do. We will be talking about the 11th unit. We will talk about gender mainstreaming. We'll talk about the urban and rural divide. Then we talk about the industry, I mean agriculture, industry, and the service sector. Okay, how gender sensitivity is to be brought in these infrastructure development in India. Okay, with the private investment. Okay, then we will also talk about the social infrastructure. As I told you, I think I was just quickly somewhere I use the term as social infrastructure. So infrastructure can be of economic also, and it can be social also. So we'll talk about that. Okay, so gender mainstreaming, basically you have already done. Yes, Nalini.
Sorry to disturb you, ma'am. Ma'am,
No,
in MGS-002, my book, it's all unit, not block. Is it same?
sorry, block is the book. Okay, that
Block,
is
but there, it is only one book for MGS-002.
no, no. In
Yes, ma'am, I'll show you.
MGS 002, there are, if I'm not wrong, five blocks.
Ma'am, see, this is MGS-002.
Yeah.
And there is no block or something here. MGS 1 we had, but in my MGS-002, it's not there. The book
Uh,
is thick. The book is thick.
okay, then I'm not sure, because the block that I have, there
Hmm.
are, I mean, when I did the course, I mean, I was having about 4, 5 blocks. What about the others, Trisha or anybody else?
Ma'am, we have 5 blocks.
5 blocks, Nalini, then you have to figure out.
I'll go to the office then.
Yeah, yeah, figure out, because that is what I was very very surprised, because as Shrija said, that there are 5 blocks.
This is the
Yeah,
third block.
yeah.
There are 5 units in book one likha hai, but the three
Hmm.
there is no other book of MGS-002. So I'll go there. Okay, let's.
You just
I'll
find
not
out.
waste your
Okay,
time here.
right,
Huh,
yeah,
okay.
so just do that. Okay, okay, fine. So okay. Yeah. So coming to this, as I said, that you have already done the this one. You have we have already discussed what is gender mainstreaming, right? So you know that it's a process through which we assess the the effect or the impact of certain policies and programs on both the genders, I mean the male and the female, and how their concerns and experiences can help in designing and implementation and monitoring and evaluation of the policy and program in all economic and all political areas, right? So basically, whenever a program is implemented, as I told you, that it has a different impact, okay, on the men and the women. So we try and find out as to how they have impacted people, and in what way are can there be some kind of changes, okay. Basically what we try to do is that gender equality is the goal of gender mainstreaming strategy. Yes, Rija, you're saying something? No? Okay. Uh, okay. All right. So, we all know that gender equality is the goal that has been accepted by the government. Okay, the government and uh, all the international organizations also, right? And all the international conferences that has been held, all the conventions and agreements which have been signed at an international level, right? So they are all they all aim at gender equality, okay. So it is also very clear that there are certain global patterns of inequality between men and women, okay. So certain pattern of equality are very similar, okay, irrespective of the country, right, irrespective of the area of the globe that you come from. And these are like, for example, uh, women usually suffer violence for diverse reason, okay. Violence against women is a very common uh, you know issue all over the world, okay. So irrespective of the area, right, it is possible that in some areas it is more and in some countries it is less, that is fine, but it is a common pattern, right? Then women's political participation, right, and their representation in the decision making structure, okay. Then the fact that they are considered less in many activities is also very common, okay. Then women and men have very different economic opportunities, and women do constitute the greater portion of the poor. This also is very very common and a general concept. And most of the trafficking worldwide happens with women and girls, okay, right. We have also heard trafficking of uh, male child, isn't it? But mostly the trafficking of women and girls again are very worldwide, okay. So if you look at these issues, you will find that these are the issues which are very common all over the world, okay. And that is the reason why, if we want to have or achieve greater equality between men and women, right, we require to change at many levels, okay, which includes the change in attitude, the change in power relationship, the change in the institutions and the legal framework, okay, changes in economic institutions, changes in the political decision making structure, okay. So a lot of changes needs to be taken up, right. And that is the reason, or these are the areas where gender mainstreaming can becomes important. Okay, because if we want to change, that change has to be brought only by the gender mainstreaming. Okay, so gender equality can only be brought with the help of gender mainstreaming. Right. Now, what are the general starting point, right, as to from where we can begin? All right, to what is the starting point of gender? So seeking information about the responsibilities, activities, interest, and priorities of women and men. All right, and the manner in which their experiences of problem differ, which means that you have to actually talk to both, right? Because how will you seek information? You can seek information with the help of uh, interviews, isn't it? With the help of sitting with them and discussing. You can also, of course, if they are educated enough, you can give them a questionnaire, isn't it? But as I told you, in the marginalized group, getting a questionnaire filled is not very easy. And even from educated people, sometimes we don't get, don't we? When we put up a research and we ask people to fill up a questionnaire, there are, if you give 100 questionnaire, if you get 50 back, you're very lucky. Okay, because most of the time, whenever I have taken a research study, this is what has happened, and then you keep calling them, then you just keep sending them uh, you know mails and email nowadays. So it has become very easy that you can at least send an email, but or at least a WhatsApp message, and then you may get a few more. So you have to sit with them, you have to find, talk to them, so that you can get the information about what are their responsibilities of men and women, both in the private sphere as well as the public sphere. Then you find out what are their activities, their day to day activities, from morning to night, what they are doing. Okay, then you get their interest, what are their interests, what are their priorities. Okay, and their experiences in life as to how they identify a problem. Okay, and how they uh, you know challenge that problem. Okay, so that has to be done, right? So you will realize as to how different the women and men uh, look at these issues. Okay, what are the different kinds of activities that they do? Okay, so how and why the gender difference and inequality becomes relevant here. Okay, then questioning assumptions about families, household, or people that may implicit in the way of a problem is stated or a policy is formulated. Whenever we formulate a policy, or whenever a policy is made, or a program, or a problem is identified, it is you have we make some assumptions, isn't it? कि इस particular, like for example, ये village है, यहाँ पे you know the bus is not reaching in this particular area. Now, because why the bus is not reaching there? Okay, because it is possible that I mean, if okay, let us say the road is there, but the bus does not stop in that bus stop. क्यों? क्योंकि वहां लोग नहीं मिलते, right? People don't come, people don't use bus, therefore we don't want the bus to stop there, right? Now the problem has been identified, because maybe some people have said that bus yahan rukti nahi hai, so we can't use the bus service. But then it was assumed that the bus will not stop because of this problem. Now, if you look at it from the women's perspective and from the men's perspective, it might be different. It is possible that the time of the bus, okay, it is possible that the men are working in the village and they do not want the bus at all. Okay, it is possible that the women wants to use the bus, but because they want to go to the nearby village for maybe for shopping or for buying something, but they are not able to go because the timing of the bus is such that they at that time they are doing their housework. Okay, so now the reason why the bus is not being used by the men is completely different by than the reason that the women are not using that bus. And therefore the government presumed something and decided कि वहां बस की जरूरत ही नहीं है. All right, it is just one of the example I'm giving. Okay, it's just a you know an example that I just thought of. Right, so there can be many such issues, right, where the government has taken a decision or government has made a policy by taking some assumptions, but you have to question those assumptions about household, about people, about the families. Okay, and men and women will have different views, so you have to take all those views, then obtaining information so that the experiences and situation of both women and men can be analyzed. What is the condition of women, what are they experiencing, what are the condition of men and what are they experiencing. That can only help you to formulate a better policy. And here the sex disaggregated data should be very efficiently studied and used. Okay, and that is the reason why we constantly talk about sex disaggregated uh, data. Okay, as to how and who are being affected, right, who are the people who are being affected. Okay, so that can be done, then seeking the input and the views of women as well as men about decision that will affect the way they live. Okay, uh, like for example, there is some kind of a disaster. Okay, there is a flood, all right, in a particular area. Now because of the flood, people have to move out. They had to move out from that place. Now if you ask the women as to what are their priorities, so they might actually immediately say that we want clean drinking water. Okay, because हमारे घर में चाहिए, right, we want shelter because we have lost our home because of the flood, right. Men at the same time might be actually looking for economic activity. Okay, because they feel that हमें immediately पैसा चाहिए so that our home can start, right. Women are looking at from the point of view of what they will be able to provide, okay, for their family, right. So there are different ways, as I said, men and women have different priorities, so that has to be uh, taken in, and that is a part of the strategy uh, of gender mainstreaming. Ensuring that activities which are women dominated, like for example the domestic work, that should receive attention. It is very important to understand that women's domestic work take a lot of time, or women's time, right. It also takes a lot of energy. We do not recognize it. That is the problem. Okay, so that must receive attention. Okay, and it has been for the last few a decade or 2 decades, it is a very uh, important, it has become a very important topic of debate as to how the domestic work that the women are doing should be taken into consideration. And I'm not talking from the India point of view, from every other country including the Western world, it has been uh, it has to be uh, it has become a very important topic. Okay, understanding that all women or all men do not share the same need and perspective. Men and women are heterogeneous. Women and women are also heterogeneous group. So you cannot always say that women are the homogeneous group and on the other side men are homogeneous. No. Okay, they respond differently, their thought process is different, their needs could be different, their perspective or could be different. So they are not homogeneous group. So you have to identify this heterogeneity and understand this. Then, need for an analysis of the issue and the proposed policy option for implication from the gender perspective. So if there is a policy that is being going to be formulated, before implementation we need to analyze the issues and what the policy will bring and how it is going to uh, have, you know have an effect, or how it is going to impact the genders, okay, both the gender. So these are the starting point of the gender mainstreaming. These are the areas you need to find out, okay. Then incorporating gender perspective in the policy making. Okay, so after, all the analysis that has been done, uh, you have to understand as to whether the policy option will affect men and women differently. Okay, if we, let us say, if we decide that water being used for domestic purpose and for commercial purpose should have a different rate, okay, or you decide that we need to increase the taxes on water, how it is going to have an effect on men and women, okay, right. If we if there is a fiscal policy change, okay, fiscal policy basically relates to taxes, okay. So if the taxes of on certain commodities are going to increase, right, and that's a fiscal policy decision, right. Every year we know that the government gives a fiscal policy, and we come to know about like for example, on medicines, the taxes will increase, okay, and the mobile phones will become fiscal, yeah, fiscal policy, right. Right. So if there are changes, the tax structure changes, or if the commodity prices change because of the VAT, so how it is going to have impact on men and women? Okay, direct taxes will affect the men more or women. Okay, we all know direct taxes means the income tax. Naturally income tax hota hai, sabse pehle the men start talking about the budget aata hai, so everybody is looking for the tax, isn't it? And always, those, because in most of the countries the number of male working are more, they are more concerned with the income tax. Whereas when you say indirect taxes will increase, then that will have an impact on the commodities. Okay, if the goods and services become expensive, it is going to have an impact on the running of home. Okay, so how women are being affected, right? So these are needs to be taken care of. Okay, then uh, gender mainstreaming is an essential part, and gender is an issue as a fundamental difference and inequalities between men and women, right. We have to understand those differences, we have to understand the inequality, and they somewhere or the other have an impact, okay, on the countries or the sectors of the economy, okay. But at the same time there are certain broad patterns that basically point to the question that should always be considered, okay. There are certain inequalities that are very very common, okay, and generally it is there. So one is inequality in the political power, okay, assessment, so assess access to decision making and representation. uh, Very few women are involved in the decision making process throughout the world, okay. uh, just sit down today evening if you wish and see how many countries in the world have women uh, president or prime minister, okay. I haven't checked, but I'm quite sure that the number is higher when it comes to men. I think so, right. uh, So which actually means that, as I said, giving voting rights is not, I mean, that is so is a basic right you have to give. How can you ask a citizen of the country, irrespective of the gender, how can you ask the person who will not be allowed to vote? The voting right, dena, is not enough. Okay. Participation in politics and participating at a higher level, how many countries have that? Okay. So you know, uh, it is realized that somewhere in 2000, the last data yahan pe diya, I'll find out the new one later. 13.4% parliament members worldwide are of women. 13.4, right? In Islamic nations, no, and the highest is in Nordic states. Okay, Nordic states are usually states which are, very, where the standard of living is very high, isn't it? So there, the lifestyle, the educational level, the gender equality is much higher, okay, than any other countries. Okay, so all the Nordic states, they have that. Okay. uh, uh, I mean, out of this 13.4 also, women there constitute almost 38%, 38 to 39%. All right. uh, uh, and both the houses of parliament, they are representing. In Arab countries, it is only 3.5%. We know that there the condition of women are not very, there's hardly any equality. Then inequality within the household, that is also very common. Okay, even in the household you will find that, the negotiating and decision making possibilities and access to resources are primarily towards the male. Okay. So you have to understand the key issues of the ability of men and women to respond to certain kind of incentives, some strategies, like for example, in order to protect from HIV and AIDS, if we decide, we try to, we decide that, uh, the best possible way of doing it is using condoms. Okay. Now, how many household, or in a household, does the women, uh, is she in a position to take the decision of whether the condom should be used or not? Okay, you will find many households where the women does not have the right to decide on the contraceptive, measure to be taken. Okay, so when that situation arises, then if I just implement a policy on HIV and AIDS, and believe that or assume that this is going to be effective, may not have the desired result. Okay, because of the house inequality in the household's decision making power, difference in the legal status and entitlement. Okay, in spite of the national constitution, international instruments stating that legally men are women and are different, culturally, socially, there are many countries where the rights of women are not, uh, are only on papers. Okay, not in the practice. Right, their opportunities, right, uh, getting the right to property, getting the right on, money, it's not there. It's there, of course, on the paper, no doubt, but because of the cultural difference, because of the social constraints, these are happening. Okay, so that change, and that has to be taken into consideration before a policy is made. Gender division of labor within the economy, right? When we decide roles for men and women, right, we also decide, what kind of sector a women is better off, and they should be engaged there. What kind of sector should is suitable for men, right? So that kind of differences are, there. We know that a lot of women are working in part time and home based industries, right? So that, has to be considered before again an economic policy is made. Inequalities in domestic and unpaid sector. There is a huge sector where women are working, and it is unpaid. Some men are also working, I'm not saying that, but then most of the highest number is that of the women, so that has to be considered. Violence against women is a very very big issue that also needs to be considered while gender mainstreaming. Okay, so these are areas of the gender mainstreaming where you need to really work on. Okay, then the discriminatory attitude as such, also the gender inequality are not just only economic, but it is, manifested in many ways. Okay, appropriate behavior, appropriate dress, isn't it? Don't we keep hearing about it, right? What is the independence, how much freedom will be given. Okay, aptitude, sometimes, it is considered women, I mean, a very weird kind of a thing. Women drivers are very bad, isn't it? Women don't know how to park. I mean, these are things which I have also heard. Women don't know how to do eye parking. No. When I was making an eye parking, I was told, "Acha, aapko aata hai?" Matlab, it is considered that women doesn't know anything about it. Okay, so these are the weird kind of a discrimination that exists. Okay, and it does not exist only in India; it exists everywhere, right? So that has to be taken into uh, consideration. Okay, before that, now gender equality and economic efficiency. What are the efforts that have been made by the United Nations, right? United Nations have used gender mainstreaming in most of uh, their work. Okay, as such, United Nations, uh, people working in United Nations, gender consideration has been taken. Member states, and they have also kind of asked all the member states to share experience and their good practices. Okay, as to how they have used gender mainstreaming in their nation, and how they are having an impact, on the status of the women. And there are various commissions, which have been which are actually constantly getting records, and information from the member states. I mean, talking about those states who are a part uh, of the UN, right? Similarly, the Commission on the Status of Women uh, was also, an intergovernmental body, right? So they have also systematically collected data. So, okay, the Economic and the Social Council, okay, they are working on this area. The Security Council also in the recent years have brought gender perspective into discussion of peace and security. So UN on its own is trying to do it. Okay, so a lot of work is being done to ensure the integration of gender perspective into the work and the function of all the different subsidiaries of the United Nations. Okay, so be it the Economic Council, Economic and Social Council, be it the the various other units, that are working. UN Habitat, okay, ILO, right, Indian International Labor Organization, right, UNDP, the United Nations Development and Planning Organization, then of course the World Health Organization, UNICEF, UNESCO, uh, the human rights organization. All these have started gender mainstreaming as a part of their regular practice. Okay, so United Nation is incorporating gender mainstreaming within their organization and within their subsidiary organization, right? Uh, then United Nations also have gender experts and gender focal points, okay, as to how they can involve more and more of them in the decision making process, okay, not just as an employee but also in the positions of decision making, support from high level, resource allocation for them, okay. Uh, they um, they have experts, they have the who are constantly sensitizing the various organization, right? So these are being done, right? Now, uh, it's being always been discussed that gender mainstreaming, it is the prerequisite and the instrument. Now, what are necessary uh, prerequisite of gender mainstreaming? If you want to do that, how can gender mainstreaming be achieved? Okay, so there are two aspects that needs to be considered. One is the technical dimension. Okay, the technical dimension, that is, it requires data, right? Reliable data. If you want to include gender mainstreaming, you must have the reliable data. You must have a sound theoretical and underpinnings and people with the ability to spot opportunities where you can include the gender. All right, so that needs to be identified. Political dimension is also important because promotion of women as decision maker and supporting the women's collective effort must have a very good political will. So these are the areas where or these are the prerequisites of gender mainstreaming. Okay, and what are the instruments? Policy coordination, legislation, the training, sensitization, gender analysis, institutional development, advocacy. You will have a long list. Okay, sex desegregated data. I'm just reading a few that is there. Okay, engendering the planning, the allocation of resources, ensuring that women are participating in all levels, right? Access to information, adopting human right framework, there are several, gender sensitive plan, gender sensitive enforcement of the justice system. All these things had to be in place, okay, and they need to be addressed, okay, for gender mainstreaming. Then in order to have an effective gender mainstreaming, you must have clear strategies for gender mainstreaming backed up by political will, right? Clear strategies and political will together have a good impact uh, on gender mainstreaming. Clear action plan which includes qualitative and quantitative targets, right? So as I said, targets can be both in quantitative and qualitative and there should be somebody who is accountable for that. Okay, so accountability is also essential. Then clearly defined management responsibility. Okay, even if it is in an organization or anywhere, there should be a clearly defined management uh, uh, responsibility. The management is responsible. Strong links between gender mainstreaming and other organizational priorities. So gender mainstreaming should not only be in the government organization, no, it should be in a private organization as well. Every organization has their own priorities, so there should be a proper link between the two. Okay, then networking with NGOs, right? So alliance building and partnership with NGOs would always help. Many countries have taken up gender mainstreaming. I'm not going to read out everyone. You can go do it yourself, and then if you want, you can discuss. Okay, so you will find that Maldives, Pakistan, Nepal, they have created many information network. Okay. So all these things are
नमस्कार
uh,
मैडम।
हाँ
मैडम ये अपने आपके काउंसिल शेड्यूल में 26 की क्लास है क्या?
जी सर।
26 को क्लास है शेड्यूल में?
सर शेड्यूल तो है 26 को।
उसको नेक्स्ट मंडे में कर लेंगे मैडम।
नहीं होगा?
हाँ नहीं होगा उस दिन।
अच्छा 26 को नहीं होगा।
26 वाला
फिर वो
31
वाली
को,
क्लास कब होगी सर?
31 को कर लीजिएगा मैडम।
आप बताओगे मुझे बाद में?
हाँ मंडे कर लीजिएगा, मंडे को।
मतलब फिर मगर मंडे को तो दूसरा क्लास शेड्यूल है।
नहीं, आप ही का है ना?
हाँ हाँ मेरा ही है।
एक एक्सटेंड कर देंगे क्लास को, एक संडे आगे चला जाएगा शेड्यूल में।
तो उसको फिर आप अरेंज करोगे कैसे करना है ना?
नहीं अनाउंस करके ही कर देंगे, कंटिन्यू कर दीजिए, डेट चेंज कर दूंगा मैं।
क्या करना है नहीं करना है?
नहीं नहीं कल नहीं करना है, कल वाला आप मंडे को क्लास ले लीजिएगा।
अच्छा ठीक है, मतलब आप कह रहे हो 26 को नहीं है?
26 को क्लास नहीं है मैम।
है?
नहीं है मैडम, नहीं है,
नहीं
नहीं
है?
है।
अच्छा ओके 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 सर, थैंक यू।
थैंक यू मैम।
Okay. So students, I hope you have heard. It seems that we don't have a class on 26th, so probably it will just shift one class or something like that, right? So you will find that there are many of these countries who have taken different several actions, okay, on this, right? So this is what you have as gender mainstreaming. Then we have we have 10 minutes, right? So we'll just talk about something which is known as the rural and urban divide, right? In spite of all the developmental process that is taking place, uh, right from the colonial rule to the developmental planning that we are having right now, the liberalization policy and all that have created a rural urban disparity. Okay, it is there, right? So initially we can say that, okay, when the British government was there, they were hardly interested in the development of India, and they have developed some of the cities because they were living in the cities, isn't it? And so they wanted Calcutta and I mean, Kolkata to be created. They had some hill station, and some of the cities were created. Mumbai was their economic, center. Delhi, I mean, like all these. So when we talk about these areas, they have developed it because they were living in it, right? And therefore, they were hardly interested as to what is happening in the rural area. But even with the development programs, 75 years have passed of all the 5-year plans. Despite of that, there is a wide gap between the rural and urban in India, okay, with respect to technology, living conditions, economic empowerment, and so on, right? Access to education, health care, sanitization, land and other assets, you know, the level of poverty, that is, uh, very obvious, okay? And uh, that is the reason where the gender concern is also there. There is a sharp increase in the rural and urban disparity in India. Even after the decades of planning and development, it is quite alarming. But I must say that in the last few years, there has been certain, I mean, some changes, no doubt. It has shown good, a positive change. Uh, because it has become important that more and more funds allocation are properly done. Okay, what happens is that when the development process take place, when when liberalization also took place, uh, the focus was always on the development of the cities and towns. Okay, the metro cities became better and better. Some of the A grade cities became a little better, but many small towns, small cities, and the rural area, especially, they were not benefited. Okay, because see, if I want to make an investment, as a foreign company, suppose if I have, I have an I'm from US and I want to make an investment in India, right? It is obvious that I would like to invest where we have the best of infrastructure facilities available, isn't it? So I will look for places where everything, all the amenities, the facilities, everything is available. I won't go into a small village where I will open, a factory, and then I will not have access to land. I mean, road. I will not have access to electricity. I will not obviously invest. So therefore, the foreign investment and everything was primarily done in the urban sector or urban area, and that is the reason why these are the places where development took place much more as compared to others, right? So when you go through your chapter, you will realize that there are certain, you know divide that is there. Okay, there is a demographic divide. Okay, as to the number of villages, 70% of the area in our country is actually the rural country, a rural part. Okay, it is only 30% is that of urban area, right? And there is a major division. Okay, rural sector, and we have to understand as to how much population is living in the rural area, because of the land. Okay, there is a population difference also, isn't it? So a huge population is residing in the um village, or in the rural area, right? Sex ratio, in fact, I'm very happy to share that the sex ratio has actually changed. Okay, initially in 2011, it was 943 uh, women per thousand male. Okay, and in 2023, I'm 20 female per thousand male. So this is after a long period. I think probably this is, if I'm not wrong, it is the first time when in India we are having a sex ratio where the number of female is more than male. We have always had negative, ratio. Uh, so that's a very positive thing. But unfortunately, in rural areas, we still have, I think the 2023 data is 985 per thousand male. Okay, so that is where we have a different ratio. Literacy rate, again, you will find that in the rural areas, the literacy rate is, there is a divide between the two. The male literacy and the female literacy also has different, is very different when it comes to, there is a gap there. Okay, in the literacy ratio. uh, I think what I got was that in 2011 the total literacy rate was 74.4, and in 23 I could figure out it was 77.7, marginal increase actually. Whereas in rural urban, in 2011 rural literacy rate was 71%, uh, and urban was 83%. Okay, 23, rural has actually fallen, it has become 66, and the urban is 84. Okay, I don't know, maybe it is because of the 2 or 3 years of, the 2 years of pandemic. Many schools where, did not function properly, and probably that is the reason why there was a, there's this fall in the rural I mean, that is my presumption, of course. Then, of course, we have the health. Again, health is something which is always influenced. Um, yes, dropout rate is there, Nalini, and a dropout rate is primarily in the rural area for girl child, and also for girls who are, I mean, also for people who are migrant laborers. Okay, because of the migration, they have to bring out their children from whichever local school they were studying, and when they move to other place, sometimes they get, sometimes they don't. And when there is a problem of earning money due to some reason, due to lack of availability, the first thing that they do is they remove the girl child from the school, okay, and let the boy child continue. Okay, so that is also one of the reasons for the dropout. Okay, so that is there. Health issues are also there. We all know that health indicators are, employment, income, educational level. All these things affect the health. Okay, if you have an employment, if you have source of earning, if you have educational level, a certain level of education, if you are in a social group where health is is a matter of importance, then people are more concerned about health. They are able to afford also, health services. But with poverty and with lack of education, sometimes people are not really taking health very health in a proper way. So that sometimes also have a problem. And of course, there is access of health facilities. Okay, in the urban area, the access of health facilities are much more as compared to what is there in the rural areas, right? So that is affected. When you go through it, you will come across the crude birth rate, life expectancy at birth, the death rate, how different they are from the rural and the urban sector. So the poverty level, right, as to how the poverty is more in the rural areas and in the and what is there in the urban area. Okay, so these are the things that you have to uh, go through and understand what is the rural urban divide. Okay, when we meet in the next class, which is, as Sir said, it's going to be on Monday, we will be talking about agriculture, industry, and services. Okay, right? So that is what we will be doing on Monday, as to what is, how women and men are participating in these. Okay, all these datas, actually, in this particular book, the datas are a little older. Whatever data I thought I could find out, I had taken and I have given you. You can just go online, okay, and check. Okay, like for example, the crude birth rate, find out what is the crude birth rate now, isn't it? So you get the latest figure, and you will be able to you know better. Some I have found out. Okay, you can also find out, and if there is anything that you want, just let me know. Okay, right? Okay, so Shisha and I mean, everybody has left. So Nalini, wish you all a very very long happy weekend. Okay, all right, and have a good
Shisha
26th
too.
January. Happy Republic
And
Day.
you too, ma'am. You also have some
Yes,
good
yeah,
quality
sure.
time.
Yeah, absolutely, right. So if there is any changes, just I'll come to know and I'll inform, right? So as for now,
Ma'am, this 22nd, many of us were not able to log in
hmm,
because we were kept in the waiting room. So we
I
missed that class. So
right.
I needed that link. Nobody is able to share that link.
Just now, I think Sir has said that he has already posted the link. So just check your email, right?
No,
If it
ma'am,
is,
I haven't received. I checked the email.
Acha, you have. Okay,
Uh,
I'll find out and I'll talk to and I'll just ask them to do it.
Okay.
Hana?
Thank you,
So
ma'am.
yes,
Thank you so
right.
much.
I'm sure you will be able to get. And so that is how it is. And let's see. We